The damp morning chill seeps through my coat as I walk the rows, the scent of fresh earth thick in the air. My brass key, a familiar weight, presses against my thigh in my pocket. I stop abruptly. One of the newest graves, still mounded high, shows an unnatural disruption. The soil has been pushed up from beneath. I can clearly see a small fresh depression where the earth has settled unevenly, a silent testament to an internal struggle. I take a step closer, my boot sinking slightly into the soft ground near the mound. My fingers twitch, a small hesitation before I reach out. I brush the cold, loose dirt. It feels too yielding, almost wet. A low, grinding sound vibrates up through the soil, a deep thrum that I feel in my fingertips. I pull my hand back sharply, a jolt running through my arm. The earth shifts again, a slow, deliberate heave. I stumble back a half step, catching myself on a nearby marker. A small, dark crack appears on the surface of the mound, spiderwebbing outward. I watch it widen, a thin line of darkness against the damp soil. This isn't just settling. Something is actively moving, pushing from within. I adjust my grip on the brass key in my pocket, the metal now feeling strangely cold against my palm. The soil groans, a wet tearing sound. I turn to leave, but my foot catches on a loose stone. I almost fall, my gaze fixed on the grave. The crack widens further. A faint, sickly light pulses from deep inside. The ground trembles beneath my feet. My fingers instinctively curl around the brass key, its cool metal now feeling strangely warm against my palm as I approach the disturbed site. The soil on the grave is further displaced, a distinct, muddy handprint now visible on the fresh mound, far too large and gnarled to be human. A shiver runs down my spine, despite the key's growing heat. I trace the outline of the print with my gaze, the mud still glistening faintly. The key pulses once, a low thrumming against my skin. I hesitate, my boot sinking slightly into the soft earth near the mound. The mud of the print seems to darken, almost absorbing the dim light. I reach out, my hand hovering just above the gnarled impression. A faint, earthy smell rises, like damp roots and something else, something metallic. My fingers twitch, wanting to touch the cold, wet soil, but I pull back. The brass key grows hotter, a steady warmth now, not just a pulse. I notice a small, dark pebble embedded in the center of the print, one I hadn't seen before. It wasn't there a moment ago. I take a half step closer, my shadow falling over the grave. The air feels heavy, pressing in. I adjust my grip on the key, its heat now almost uncomfortable. The handprint seems to deepen further, the mud shifting subtly at its edges. I feel a slight pull, a faint tugging sensation from the ground itself. I shouldn't linger here. My gaze drifts to the edge of the grave, where a few withered flowers now lie crushed, though I remember them standing upright just yesterday. The key vibrates again, a more insistent tremor this time. I try to shift my weight, but my boot feels stuck, held by the damp, clinging earth. I pull my foot free with a soft, sucking sound. The handprint on the mound seems to expand, the muddy fingers stretching just a fraction. I grip the key tighter, its warmth a constant pressure now, a reminder of the task. The brass key in my pocket begins to hum, a low thrum against my leg. I try to ignore it, but the sound grows, a faint vibration that travels up my thigh. The grave is noticeably open now, a gaping fissure in the earth. My boot scrapes the loose soil as I step closer, the ground soft beneath me. The key pulses harder, a steady rhythm against the fabric. Splintered dark wood shows inside, a jagged break in the coffin lid. A faint, cloying smell wafts from the opening. Not quite earth, not quite decay. I see a dark, sticky residue on the edge of the grave liner, a thick, unnatural mark. My hand twitches, almost reaching for the key, but I stop myself. My left palm still aches from the last time a key vibrated like this, a faint, raised line across the skin. The hum deepens, a low growl now, making the air around me feel thick. I lean forward, my shadow falling into the dark pit. The sticky substance glistens, catching the dull light, and I feel a slight pull from below. The brass key feels hot against my skin, a small furnace in my pocket. I hesitate, my gaze fixed on the broken wood. A small pebble dislodges from the edge, tumbling down into the darkness with a soft thud. The cloying smell intensifies, a sweet, sickly breath rising from the grave. I take a half step back, my foot catching on a root, nearly losing my balance. The key vibrates violently now, a frantic buzz against my leg. The grave seems to breathe, a slow, deliberate expansion of the dark opening. I adjust my grip on the shovel, the cold metal a small comfort. The splintered wood groans softly, a sound that feels too close. The hum from my brass key intensifies, a distinct buzzing that vibrates up my leg, making my teeth ache. A soft, wet scraping sound now emanates from the partially open grave, a rhythmic pull and drag from deep within the earth. I can almost feel the struggle, the desperate effort of something trying to free itself. A long, fresh scratch mark mars the granite headstone, deep enough to catch my fingernail. My grip tightens on the key, the brass warm against my palm. I shift my weight, a small stone crunching under my boot, and the scraping pauses for a moment. Then it resumes, louder this time, a wet tearing sound that makes the soil around the grave tremble. A faint, sweet smell, like damp earth mixed with something metallic, rises from the opening. My fingers brush the old scar on my wrist, a thin white line from the last time a lock resisted. I lean closer to the headstone, tracing the deep scratch with my thumb. The granite feels cold, too cold for the morning air. The key in my hand pulses with a low thrum, urging me forward. A small clod of dirt falls from the edge of the grave, landing with a soft plop. The scraping grows frantic, a desperate clawing that seems to pull the very air. I hesitate, my foot hovering over the loose soil. The ground beneath me gives a subtle, almost imperceptible shift. The key's hum becomes a high-pitched whine, a signal I know too well. I adjust my collar, feeling the dampness in the air. The task is clear, even if the source is not. My hand tightens around the brass key. It burns against my palm, forcing a slight shift in my stance. Through the growing gap in the earth, I catch a fleeting glimpse of movement. A pale, indistinct form shifts and contorts within the darkness below, like a broken reflection in murky water. The scraping sounds intensify, a desperate, frantic rhythm echoing in the still air. I take a half step back, my boots scuffing the loose soil. The key feels heavier now, a solid weight pulling at my fingers, almost pulling me forward. A small, dark stain, like dried mud mixed with something else, now visibly darkens the grass beside the grave. It spreads slowly, a silent bloom across the green blades. I lean closer, a mistake, trying to discern the texture of the stain. A faint, sweet metallic smell rises from it, catching in my throat. The form below seems to notice my proximity. It presses against the crumbling edge of the gap, and a thin, white finger, too long, emerges briefly before retracting into the gloom. The scraping stops. The sudden silence feels louder than the noise. I grip the key tighter, my knuckles white, my arm beginning to ache from the heat. The ground trembles slightly beneath my feet, a low thrumming that vibrates up through my worn boots. I almost drop the key, fumbling for a moment before regaining my hold. This task is never simple. The gap seems to widen just a fraction more, and a soft, wet sound escapes from below. The brass key suddenly leaps in my pocket, striking my hip bone with a sharp, painful jolt. I gasp, a small, involuntary sound escaping my lips. My hand instinctively goes to the pocket, feeling the cold metal press against the fabric. A long, skeletal limb, caped in grave soil, slowly emerges from the disturbed earth beside me. It reaches blindly for the surface, unnaturally long, its fingers tipped with what look like hardened, sharp claws. I notice a fresh, deep gouge in the wooden cross at the head of the grave, where the limb must have scraped its way out. I take a careful step back, my boot sinking slightly into the soft ground. The air grows colder, a damp chill seeping into my jacket. The limb twitches, its bony fingers flexing, and a faint scraping sound follows. I glance around, my eyes searching the other graves, but everything else remains still. My fingers brush the brass key again. A strange comfort in its familiar weight. Then a figure appears at the edge of my vision. It's Elias, standing by a distant headstone. He's back to me. He turns slowly, his eyes rolled back, a wide, unnatural smile stretching his face. "Don't let them touch the soil," he whispers, his voice flat and hollow. Then his eyes snap back to normal, the smile vanishes, and he resumes digging, as if nothing happened. The limb continues to rise, now clearing the lip of the grave. It seems to sense my presence, turning slightly in my direction. I hesitate, my foot catching on a loose clump of earth, almost stumbling. The key feels heavier now, almost pulling me towards the grave. I try to shift my weight, but my feet feel rooted. The limb's movement accelerates, its sharp claws now pointing directly at me. The soil around the grave begins to shift and crack, a low rumble starting beneath my boots. The key in my pocket turns ice cold, a shocking chill that spreads through the fabric and into my skin. I shiver, a quick tremor that runs down my spine, a familiar, weary response. The creature is partially out of the grave. A grotesque, earth-caked figure, its form hunched and straining against the dark soil. Its head, devoid of eyes, turns slowly in my direction, an empty, terrifying gaze. A patch of grass around the grave is dead, withered into an unnatural, sickly circle. I notice the way the withered blades curl inward, almost defensively. My fingers instinctively brush the cold key, a small, useless comfort against the growing unease. I take a hesitant step back, my boot sinking slightly into the soft earth near the grave's edge. A low, wet sound gurgles from the creature's throat, like mud shifting under pressure. It pushes harder against the grave's edge, a faint crack echoing from the ancient stone. The cold from the key intensifies, now a sharp ache in my thigh, a constant reminder. I shift my weight, trying to ease the discomfort, but it only seems to deepen. I glance down at the dead grass, then back at the straining figure, assessing its slow progress. My foot catches on a loose clump of soil, and I nearly stumble forward. I catch myself, my hand reaching out to steady against nothing, a brief, clumsy movement. The creature's head tilts, as if listening to my small error. A thin, dark root, like a vein, slowly pulls itself from the disturbed earth near its shoulder, reaching. The brass key begins to hum again in my grip, a low, resonant thrumming. It vibrates through the very ground beneath my boots, a familiar tremor that always precedes something worse. I shift my weight, the vibration making my old scar along my forearm prickle with a dull ache. My fingers tighten around the cool brass, a small adjustment. The creature begins to drag itself fully out, making a wet, tearing sound as it frees itself from the earth's embrace. I take a half step back, my foot catching slightly on a loose clump of soil. Its body is too large, too contorted to be human, unfolding from the dark earth like a broken, wet umbrella. I grip the key tighter, the metal warm against my palm. A small, polished stone from the grave's edge, previously untouched, is now shattered into fine dust. It crumbles as if crushed by immense pressure, the sound lost beneath the creature's wet movements. I watch the dust settle, a new layer on the damp ground. The creature pulls another limb free, its movement slow but unstoppable. I hesitate, wondering if I should have moved further away. The air grows heavy, thick with the smell of damp soil and something else, something metallic and wrong. The key's hum deepens, a low growl now. I notice the ground around the creature is sinking, forming a shallow, muddy crater. This wasn't happening before. I adjust my stance, ready to move. But my gaze stays fixed on the emerging mass. The task requires me to observe, to endure. The key's humming intensifies violently, vibrating against my leg with such force that I instinctively grip it through the fabric of my pocket. I feel the metal warp slightly under my fingers, a strange, malleable heat. The vibration travels up my arm, a dull ache that settles in my elbow. The creature is now standing, hunched and massive, covered in clinging earth and tattered grave clothes. It takes a shuffling, ponderous step towards me, the damp ground trembling faintly with each movement of its heavy form. I shift my weight, a small, loose stone scaring under my boot, disturbing the quiet. A single, long, dark hair, thick with soil, clings to the fabric of my trousers, just above my pocket. It wasn't there a moment ago. I try to brush it away, but my fingers hesitate, feeling a strange, almost sticky resistance against the cloth. The air grows heavy, smelling distinctly of damp earth and something else. Something ancient and metallic. The creature lifts one arm slowly, its hand gnarled and dark, pointing towards a faint, pulsing glow in the distance. I glance at the glow, then back at the creature, a cold dread settling in my chest. The key in my pocket pulses again, a sharp, hot throb against my thigh. I take a step back, my foot catching on an unseen root, almost stumbling. The creature's head tilts, a low, guttural sound escaping its throat, like stones grinding. The hair on my trousers seems to tighten its grip, pulling slightly. I feel a faint tug. The brass key in my hand begins to hum, a low vibration that travels up my arm. It grows warm, then searing hot, forcing a gasp from my throat. I almost drop it, but my fingers clench around the metal. The heat intensifies, burning through the thick fabric of my work gloves. A sharp, metallic smell fills the air. Then, just as quickly, it turns ice cold, a sudden painful chill that makes my teeth ache. I feel a distinct pressure against my thigh, a perfect circle of intense cold blooming through my pocket. The creature, which had been halfway out of the open grave, stops. Its head, a mass of tangled roots and soil, tilts slightly. It makes no sound. I feel the key's cold imprint against my skin, a deep, searing brand forming. The creature shudders once, a ripple passing through its earthen form. Then, with a wet thud, it collapses back into the dark pit. The earth around the grave shifts, settling inward, covering the creature completely. It looks as if the ground was never disturbed. I pull my hand away from my pocket, the key still clutched tight. The fabric is singed, a small, perfect circle melted clean through. Beneath it, on my skin, the circular burn throbs, a constant, painful reminder of what just happened. The key feels normal now, cool and heavy. I press my thumb against the fresh mark on my thigh. It's perfectly round and still radiates a faint chill. The task is done. For now.